I bought a house to help my family start over, but they forged a lease. In my name, burned it down, and tried to steal everything I had until I took them to court and revealed the truth in front of everyone. When I told my mom I bought her a house, she tore up the deed, called me a liar, and then called the cops. I wish I was exaggerating, but that moment was the most humiliating and eye-opening experience of my life. My name's Malik. I'm 29 now, but this started way before I had any money, any stability, or even the guts to stand up for myself. I was raised by a single mother in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Newark, New Jersey. It wasn't just the two of us, though. My aunt and her kids lived there too, and by the time I was 12, there were 6 of us stuffed into that tiny space. From as early as I can remember, my mom made it clear that I owed her everything. And when I say everything, I mean my time, my money, my future. "I gave up my whole life for you," she'd say whenever I asked to go out, or if I didn't want to take my cousins to school. "The least you can do is not be ungrateful." So I wasn't. I got my first job bagging groceries at 13 and handed over half my paycheck every week. When I got accepted into college, she cried. Not tears of joy, but actual sobbing tears of anger, because I was trying to escape instead of helping the family. I gave up the dorms, commuted 4 hours a day, and kept working part-time jobs just to stay afloat. Then came the debt. My mom had a gambling problem, though she'd never call it that. "Just a little fun," she'd say, even as late notices stacked up on the kitchen counter. At one point, I dropped out for a full semester to help her pay off a loan from someone she refused to name. I didn't ask questions. I just worked, and I kept working. By the time I was 28, I was managing digital campaigns for a small firm and finally making good money. I'd quietly saved for 3 years. I didn't tell anyone, not even my best friend, what I was planning. I bought a small house outside the city. Nothing flashy, just a modest, clean 2-bedroom home with a yard and a fresh coat of paint. A place where my mom could live without stress, without noise, without debt collectors pounding on the door. I thought I was giving her freedom. The day I told her, I invited the whole family over. I had balloons, a banner that said, "Welcome home, Mom," and even cooked her favorite meal. I printed the deed, had it framed, and prepared a little speech about how much I appreciated her sacrifices. She didn't even let me finish. The moment I said, "I bought you a house," she stood up, walked over to the frame, stared at it for a second, and then ripped the papers into pieces. "You think you can just buy me off?" she screamed. "You think this makes up for everything?" I stood there stunned, still holding the fork I'd been eating with. My aunt smirked from the other side of the room. One of my cousins actually clapped. And then, as if all of this wasn't enough, my mom stormed into the kitchen and called 911. I couldn't believe it. She told the dispatcher I was mentally unstable, that I'd stolen money, and was trying to coerce her into signing something. She said I'd threatened her, and when the cops showed up 20 minutes later, guess what? She cried on cue. She told them I was dangerous, that I was trying to manipulate her, and that she didn't feel safe. And the worst part? They believed her. I was escorted out of my own apartment in front of everyone I'd ever grown up with. My neighbors watched from their windows as I sat on the curb, answering questions I didn't understand. I tried to stay calm, to explain what was really going on, but no one listened. The next day, I went back to grab some of my things and found the door chained from the inside. My name wasn't on the lease anymore. My bank account had been emptied. My work laptop was gone. And worst of all, the framed photo of me and my mom from high school, the only picture I ever kept, was shattered on the ground. But that wasn't the worst thing I found. No, that came when I opened my email and saw the subject line, "Urgent, notice of job termination." And inside, screenshots of a Facebook post my mom had made the night before. She said I'd been violent, that I'd attacked her, that I needed help before I hurt someone for real. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. And that's when I got a message from my cousin Caleb. They planned this, he wrote. They talked about it for weeks. You were never supposed to get out. I read Caleb's message at least 10 times before it sank in. They planned this. They talked about it for weeks. You were never supposed to get out. It felt like someone had ripped the air from my lungs. All those years of sacrifice, of bending over backward to prove I was loyal, to show I was grateful. And for what? A setup. A calculated takedown. I called Caleb right away. He answered on the first ring. "Man, I didn't know what to do," he said. His voice was low, nervous. "Aunt Loretta was bragging about it the night before the dinner. Said your mom had found a way to finally humble you." I stood in the middle of my apartment. Well, technically not mine anymore. Surrounded by half-packed boxes, my hands shaking. "She said they were going to make you look crazy. Said nobody would take your side if they all stuck to the same story." I closed my eyes. Every memory started replaying with new meaning. The way my mom didn't blink when she called the cops. The way my aunt smirked. The silence from my cousins as I was led out like some criminal. They weren't shocked. They weren't confused. They were waiting for it. "They even talked about your job," Caleb continued. "Said it'd be easy to ruin if they posted something public enough." I opened my email again. There it was. My manager's response to the Facebook post. "We take allegations of violence seriously. Please be advised that your access to internal systems has been temporarily suspended pending an investigation." I sat on the floor, numb. In less than 24 hours, I'd gone from offering my mother a house to being labeled a danger to society. I spent the next 3 days in a daze. I barely ate, slept maybe an hour each night. Caleb kept checking in, offering to help, but I couldn't bring myself to even respond. My landlord, who'd always been friendly, called to say the building was getting a lot of attention, and it might be best if I found other arrangements for everyone's comfort. I wasn't evicted, but I wasn't exactly welcome anymore either. Then, on the 4th night, something strange happened. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me said I should. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a girl's voice, quiet and shaky. "Malik?" "Yeah?" It's Renee." I blinked. "Renee?" I hadn't heard her voice in over a year. She was my youngest cousin, Aunt Loretta's daughter, barely 14. "Are you okay?" I asked, instantly alert. "Where are you?" "I'm at home," she whispered. "But I need to tell you something. I don't have much time." I stepped into the hallway, away from the window. "Take your time. What's going on?" "They're planning something else," she said. "I heard my mom and grandma talking in the kitchen. They said you're too quiet and that they should make sure you don't go to the police. Grandma said she still has your old mail, and she's going to use it." My chest tightened. "Use it how?" "I don't know," Renee said, her voice starting to tremble. "But she said something about the deed, and that if you won't give it willingly, she'll make sure you never use it. Then she said something that chilled me to the bone. She has the key, Malik, to the house, the one you bought her." I froze. My mouth went dry. "I thought you should know," Renee added quickly. "And I'm sorry. I wanted to say thank you for trying to do something good for us." Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart pounding. That house was still in my name. I hadn't canceled the deed. I was so stunned by everything that I hadn't touched the paperwork. The title, the mortgage, the taxes. It all pointed back to me. And now my mother had the key. I grabbed my coat and keys and ran out the door. 15 minutes later, I pulled up to the property I had once dreamed would be my mother's sanctuary. And that's when I saw it. The lights were on. The door was wide open, and smoke was coming from the back window. I didn't think I could still be surprised by my family. But standing there, watching smoke curl out of the back window of the house I bought for them, I felt something snap inside me. Not fear, not even sadness, just pure, searing rage. I jumped out of my car, heart hammering, and sprinted toward the porch. The front door was wide open, hanging off its hinges like someone had kicked it in. Inside, the place was trashed. Furniture overturned, food rotting on the floor, broken glass everywhere. This wasn't just messy, it was deliberate destruction. But it was the smell that hit me next. Something was burning. I ran toward the back of the house and found a small fire smoldering in the kitchen sink. A pile of shredded papers and plastic had been set ablaze, but luckily the fire hadn't spread yet. I grabbed a nearby pitcher of water and doused it, choking on the smoke as I fanned it out with a dish towel. Once the flames were out, I looked closer. They were burning documents. My documents. Mortgage statements, insurance paperwork, even a copy of the deed, all half-charred but still readable. They were trying to erase my ownership. And then I heard it. A creak upstairs. I froze, heart thudding. Someone was still in the house. I didn't have a weapon, not even my phone. I'd left it in the car in my rush. But I couldn't leave, not after this. I moved up the stairs slowly, careful with every step. The house was mostly dark, the upstairs hallway lit only by the faint glow of a lamp from one of the bedrooms. I could hear rustling, then a drawer slam. When I reached the doorway, I saw her. My aunt, Aunt Loretta, wearing latex gloves and going through the dresser drawers in what was supposed to be my mother's new bedroom. I stepped into the light. "What are you doing?" She froze, turned slowly. Her face didn't show shock, just cold calculation. "Oh," she said. "You came." I stared at her. "You set the kitchen on fire." "I was cleaning," she said flatly, "and I dropped a candle." I laughed. Actually laughed. But it sounded more like choking. "You're unbelievable!" She walked toward me, slowly, arms crossed like she had every right to be there. "You abandoned your family, Malik, then tried to buy your way back in. You think that house makes you better than us?" "I gave you a way out," I snapped. "I gave all of you a chance to start over, and you turned it into a war." "You never gave us anything," she hissed. "You just wanted control, just like your father." I blinked. "What does that mean?" She leaned in, voice low. "You think your mom never told me? That I didn't know what he did? Why she kept you hidden for all those years?" I shook my head. "What are you talking about?" Her lips curled. "She didn't tell you, did she?" The silence was thick. "She always said the worst parts of him lived in you. That's why she kept you close. To make sure you never became him." I stepped back like she'd slapped me. "I don't believe you." "Ask her," she said. "Oh, wait, you can't. She's gone." "What?" "She left town last night," Loretta smirked. "Took the money you wired her for the house and disappeared. Guess she figured the rest of us could handle the mess." My stomach dropped. "I didn't wire her anything." Loretta shrugged. "Well, someone did. 100 grand. She used your name. Set up an account months ago. Then she vanished." I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. I had been so careful. I never wired her a cent. Everything was in person. But I'd filled out documents, sent scans, emails, things she could have accessed if she wanted to. "They used my identity?" She smiled. "You're finally getting it." Then she walked past me like I didn't even exist. By the time I made it downstairs, she was gone. And I was standing in a burned-out house, robbed of everything, again. I stumbled back to my car and grabbed my phone, hands shaking. One new email. Subject: Your transfer confirmation. $100,000, wired to account ending in 5401. I clicked it open. There was a note attached, just 4 words. "You still owe us." When I got back to my apartment that night, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I sat on the edge of my bed, smoke still clinging to my jacket, my muscles trembling, and I made a list. Not a to-do list. A war plan. They thought they'd broken me. Again. That by burning what I built and stealing what I gave, I'd shrink back into the obedient son, the grateful nephew, the desperate kid who kept begging for scraps. But they forgot something. I don't need their approval anymore. That night, I called my lawyer, Vanessa. She'd handled my condo paperwork a few years back, and I trusted her. I didn't hold anything back. I told her about the wire fraud, the identity theft, the forged signature, the fire, everything. To my surprise, she didn't sound shocked. "Malik," she said calmly, "you're not their victim anymore. You're their liability." The next day, we filed for a civil injunction, blocking any member of my family from accessing any property, funds, or documents in my name. She also helped me draft a legal demand to the bank, requesting the full record of the fraudulent transaction and every IP address associated with the login. We got it the same evening. The transfer was made from a laptop at a public library in East Orange, less than 5 blocks from my mom's house. But I didn't confront her, not yet. I waited. While Vanessa gathered evidence, I did my own digging. I went to the pawn shop where they sold my electronics during the break-in. I asked to speak with the manager and showed him a still image from the police report, my uncle leaving with my MacBook. He recognized him immediately. "He used a fake name," the manager said, flipping through the logbook. "But it's all here." Bingo! Collected everything. Receipts, surveillance screenshots, text messages from Caleb and Renee, even the bank's confirmation of the unauthorized wire. And then I did what they never expected. I sued them. Officially. By name. For identity theft, destruction of property, slander, and financial fraud. Within a week, court notices were delivered. My aunt tried to play dumb. My uncle threatened me over voicemail, dumb move. My mom. She disappeared again. But this time, I had a paper trail. Vanessa filed a motion to freeze the $100,000 account until the investigation was complete. Meanwhile, I filed for a restraining order against all 3 of them. And because the house was still legally mine, and they had vandalized it, I was able to press charges for criminal trespassing and arson. I know what you're thinking. Finally, justice. But it gets better. A few days later, I got a message from an old neighbor. She said she saw someone trying to sneak into the garage of the house again late at night. She called the police. And guess what they found? My mom. Sleeping on an air mattress, surrounded by burnt walls and garbage bags full of God knows what. They arrested her for violating the injunction and trespassing. She was held overnight. Now here's where it takes a turn I never saw coming. When the police searched her belongings, they found a black binder. Inside, printed copies of my bank statements, old emails, my social security number, and something that made me go cold. A fake lease agreement. Between her and me. Dated 3 months prior. She had been planning this long before I ever invited her over for dinner. Long before I handed her that check. She never wanted the house. She wanted the paper trail. To paint me as unstable. To claim tenant rights. To claim ownership. It had all been a setup from the start. She knew the law better than I thought. Knew that if she stayed long enough, claimed abuse, and had any kind of lease, even a forged one, it could delay eviction for months. She wasn't irrational. She was strategic. And I finally saw her for what she truly was. Not a hurt mother, not a confused woman, but a con artist. And now, thanks to that binder, I had everything I needed. The courtroom was packed, not with reporters or media, just regular people, waiting for their own hearings, watching our case unfold like something out of a movie. On one side sat my lawyer Vanessa and me, with every document, every photo, every report neatly organized in front of us. On the other side, my mother, aunt, and uncle, all stiff in wrinkled dress clothes, faces hardened with defiance. The judge called it the final hearing for my civil suit and criminal complaint. After months of discovery, filings, restraining orders, and back-and-forth motions, this was it. The end. My mother still hadn't spoken to me directly since her arrest in the burned-out house. But when I took the stand, she locked eyes with me. There wasn't sadness there, no guilt, just calculation, like she was trying to read how much of her plan I had figured out. Spoiler, all of it. I told the court everything, calmly, clearly. I described how I worked for years to provide for a family that treated me like property. How I bought them a home and they responded by trying to destroy mine. How they forged documents, emptied accounts, and burned down what little piece I had built for myself. How they planned it all. I read from the fake lease my mother created, held up the screenshots of the money transfers, submitted the pawnshop video and library login data, all irrefutable evidence of what they'd done. And then Vanessa dropped the final bombshell, the notarized letter. You see, after we found the forged lease, we dug deeper. One of the notary stamps she used belonged to a woman who no longer lived in New Jersey. When Vanessa called her, she was stunned. The woman said she'd never met my mother, but had lost her notary stamp months ago. Forgery, fraud, federal. When the judge reviewed everything, his expression didn't waver. He didn't need time to deliberate. He turned to my mother first. "Ms. Harris," he said, "your actions demonstrate a pattern of deliberate manipulation, deception, and abuse of the legal system. You attempted to fabricate a tenancy, impersonate a notary, and illegally access financial accounts. This court finds you guilty on all charges." He gave her 2 years of state supervision, 6 months of probation violation lock-in, full restitution, and, my favorite, mandatory psychiatric evaluation. My aunt and uncle were both found complicit in identity fraud and criminal trespassing. They got 1 year of supervised release and were ordered to pay damages as well. But that wasn't even the most satisfying part. The judge turned back to me, his tone softer now. "Mr. Harris, you've shown remarkable restraint, and more than that, strength. This court acknowledges the emotional toll your family has taken. You acted responsibly, legally, and with dignity." And then, he granted my final request. Permanent restraining orders, against all 3 of them, effective immediately. As court adjourned, my mother finally broke her silence. She didn't yell, she didn't cry. She just looked at me and said, "You think this is over?" I met her gaze. "It is," I said, "and it has been. For a long time." I walked out of that courthouse into the cold air with my head high, my chest light, and a peace I hadn't felt in years. Not because I beat them, but because I finally stopped trying to save people who never wanted to be saved. A week later, I changed my number, closed the old bank accounts, and officially donated the house, yes, the house, to a local domestic violence shelter. I figured if it couldn't be a home for me or them, at least it could protect someone else. I've learned a lot through this. Mostly, that blood doesn't guarantee love. And that family isn't who raises you, it's who respects you. And if you've ever had to walk away from people who made you question your own worth, just know, you're not alone, you're not crazy, and you're not weak. You're healing. And if this story hit close to home, drop a 2 in the comments. I see you, I hear you. And if you haven't already, subscribe for more real Reddit stories like this one.